Peace and blessings, soul family. I love you all. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day today. Today we are talking about Vak, the four levels of sound, four levels of the word. And today we are talking about Pashyanti Vak, the visionary level of the word. The cultivation of purified thought construct is very difficult to accomplish if we are not also working down into the third level, the Pashyanti or visionary level. This is the level beyond ordinary discourse where the vibrations of thought and feeling seem entirely wordless. It is at this level of precognitive will, Ichcha Shakti, the initial impulse of consciousness toward expression. On this level of the word, there is no differentiation of space and time, and light and sound are as well are synesthetically fused. The word is very much active here, though in a compacted and concealed form. This is the plane of so-called nirvikalpa that is spoken of about nirvikalpa samadhi. Nirvikalpa awareness is in this context that term does not mean without thought, but rather that the vikalpas, the differential thought constructs, have become converted into the pure energy in very subtle forms. Because these are so deeply internalized, they have more power to influence us on this level, for good or ill. On this level, subjective awareness is dominant. That is, the subject-object split of ordinary thought is scarcely operative, for the various objects of experience have collapsed into the subject. We perceive the impressions of the various experiences as part of ourselves, and again, with good or ill results depending on the impressions. So this is the level of our precognitive, deeply held beliefs about reality, woven into our sense of self, and all the stronger for being wordless. This level is called visionary because the pattern held here powerfully shapes our vision of reality, structuring our thoughts on the Madhyama level and our words on the Vakari level. The subliminal impressions of past experiences, called samskaras, held here, constantly provide the template for our mental and physical engagement with reality. Hence, if our yoga does not help us reach this level, lasting change is impossible. This is the level of deep healing, where our goal is to create a pattern in the deepest level of individual awareness that perfectly aligns with the cosmic divine pattern. The model of the four levels of the word helps us to understand why it can be so hard to tell the difference between a hunch that expresses deep intuitive insight and one that expresses deep subconscious programming. We feel both viscerally, but while the former is completely reliable, the latter is only sporadically so. The difficulty in telling them apart is that both bear the mark of the Pashyanti level. The former arises from the fundamental level of the word and passes through the Pashyanti level of the subconscious to simplify it and emerges into the mind, whereas the latter, the hunch that comes from subconscious programming, arises from samskaras, those subconscious impressions, which have been imprinted on the Pashyanti level. You can see here, explaining the four levels and the intuitive insight, breaking all the way down to these lower levels, more dense levels, and then the surfacing of conditioning coming from both. And you have to be able to have that discernment using the buddhi to understand whether what you're feeling is truly a deeply intuitive, a bit of your intuition, or whether it is deeply held subconscious programming that's just held within the mind. So in other words, the difficulty in telling deep intuition and deep programming apart is simply because the deep intuition arises from the para level of through the Pashyanti and the Madhyama levels, whereas the deep programming arises only from the Pashyanti level. We must therefore be skeptical of our hunches and investigate their real nature. One way to tell the difference between the arising of true intuitive insight from the Parav level and the arising of deep conditioning from the Pashyanti level is this. When you question the hunch, if it comes from your samskaras, the mind will defend and justify it, arguing for its validity and pointing to the evidence that seems to corroborate it. By contrast, when you question a real intuition, it simply remains silent, a silent, persistent pull or feeling about what's right in that situation. The insight does not justify or explain itself, just offers itself as a gift. It does take practice to listen to this voice that is quieter than the mind. The more our yoga progresses, the more our intuition does, becoming accurately aligned with the deeper pattern, the para level. To facilitate the deep healing and clearing that makes this possible, we must allow our spiritual work to penetrate to the Pashyanti level, where our subliminal impressions or samskaras are lodged. There are 3 methods to penetrate to this level. The first is to repeatedly cultivate purified thought constructs at the Madhyama level of conscious thought, until that patterning of awareness becomes strong enough to spill over and shape the unconscious pattern of the Pashyanti level. For example, by marinating your mind in profound, uplifting spiritual teachings, you will slowly reprogram your subconscious mind. This method is beautifully explained by Bhenavagupta in the chapter 4 of his Essence of the Tantras. The second method is a type of mindfulness meditation which is oriented to the Pashyanti, or visionary level. By accessing the all-accepting witness consciousness that also dwells on this level, we create a healing space of awareness in which our old samskaras, mental impressions, are automatically released. To be clear, in this type of meditation, instead of focusing on a mantra or the breath for the whole time, you spend some time simply sitting in a space of quiet openness, with a willingness to see whatever needs to be seen, to feel whatever needs to be felt, neither seeking nor pushing away thoughts by simply watching non-judgmentally whatever arises and subsides. This simple act of sitting and being is actually the most effective method of meditation for healing samskaras. When you hold the space of non-judgment, loving awareness, opening up to whatever needs to be seen, then the samskaras that are ready to be released will start to arise into that space and be felt and then dissolve. The third method is mantra repetition. This practice begins on the Vakari level, simply speaking or singing a mantra such as Om Namah Shivaya. And on the Vakari level, where not as much benefit is experienced, if sufficiently practiced, however, the mantra becomes subtler and subtler until it purifies all 3 levels of speech, we are told. To work with this method, you recite your primary mantra with faith and loving, full-hearted awareness, both in meditation and many times throughout the day, and in time it will naturally transition from an articulate form to a kind of rhythmic pulsation in which the words are no longer distinct, but their vibration is still present. When this pulsation starts to arise spontaneously, that is, with no conscious volition, and blissfully, the mantra has successfully penetrated the Pashyanti level. When the Pashyanti level is purified, whether by the method of purifying thought constructs, mindfulness meditation, or subtle mantra repetition, the unobstructed light of divine will, power, directs you to awakening to the realization of your ultimate nature. Okay, I have to read this pretty quick. Pashyanti, the third level of sound, visual sound, is similar to synesthesia, an external sensory input in one modality that is internally perceived in another sensory modality is synesthesia. A synesthete might see sounds or hear colors. This is an ability that can be cultivated over time. At first, we use imagination to generate visuals to accompany sound, or sound to accompany visuals. Eventually, we will cultivate the skill to internally represent sensory input in alternative ways. This will be helpful as we move into the meditations on internal light and sound. So, that is the third level, Pashyanti Vak. Alright, I love you all. I hope everyone's doing well. We're going to come back with Pada. Peace and blessings.